tonight.
I will not withdraw and apologize to the government House Leader.
Emotions run over in the final debate in the Saskatchewan Legislature this year. One MLA forced to leave the Assembly, another apologizes. Also, local store owners and holiday bakers are caught in the crossfire of a not-so-sweet labor battle. Plus, the Saskatchewan Roughriders introduced their new offensive coordinator, a man with deep family ties to the team.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Thursday, December 7th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. Good evening and thank you for watching. Emotions ran over today at the final day of the fall Saskatchewan legislative sitting. The government and the opposition at odds over a protest that shut down debate last month. The result today was one apology and one member being forced to leave the Assembly. On November 20th, protesters came to the legislature calling on the Premier to ask for a ceasefire in Gaza. They chanted inside the Assembly, which prompted the Speaker to suspend proceedings. A few days later, members voted to have the incident investigated by a government committee. Yesterday, that committee, made up of mostly Saskatchewan Party MLAs, voted against an investigation. After question period, Jeremy Harrison and opposition MLA Mira Conway exchanged heated statements. Both were asked to apologize by the Speaker. Harrison did, Conway did not, and was asked to leave.
I didn't apologize today because of serious personal and professional accusations that were made, not just to me, but my team. I'm proud that I didn't withdraw and apologize. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. I meant every word that I said in there.
The Speaker doesn't call grave disorder and shut down the chamber because things are peaceful and happy. The chamber was, after people were moved out of the building, the chamber was shut down. The chamber was shut down because the Speaker called grave disorder, which has not happened as long as I have been here, and I'm told has rarely happened in the history of the Assembly.
Harrison characterized the protest as a riot today, but security at the legislature said the protest was not violent and did not result in any arrests or damage. Saskatchewan's provincial auditor says the Ministry of Social Services still has a long way to go when it comes to responding to and investigating child abuse and neglect allegations in a timely manner. Between 2022 and 2023, the Ministry of Social Services received about 19,000 reports of child abuse and neglect. Caseworkers investigated 38% of them. As of May, there were almost 1,000 outstanding allegations. The auditor says face-to-face contact is an issue, especially when it comes to children. In one case, it took 88 days for a worker to see a child. Family risk assessments should also be done within 30 days of being assigned to investigate. But the auditor says in some cases, it's taken nearly a year. She says paperwork is also an issue.
Sometimes when it comes to completing the investigation reports and the risk assessments, that the paperwork side kind of gets left by the wayside. That said, if you haven't completed that, the families that might need ongoing child protection support from the ministry are not getting it. It has to be concluded, supervisors have to review, and everything has to be finalized. So it's an important step.
Clements also says it's up to the ministry to acknowledge caseworkers are still not meeting their set timeframes and to create an action plan to fix that. Cindy Woodhouse has been chosen new National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations. The convention balloting was drawn out, but she takes the post amid calls for unity. Olivia Stefanovic reports.
Well, after several rounds of ballots, we now have a new National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations, Cindy Woodhouse, who was, up until today, Manitoba's regional chief for the AFN. Woodhouse is from Penamutang First Nation in Manitoba, and she's now the third female national chief of the Assembly, after interim national chief Joanna Bernard and Roseanne Archibald, who was ousted from the top job after misconduct allegations. Now, Woodhouse was part of the executive committee that recommended Archibald's removal, and Woodhouse, in her victory speech, lifted up Archibald and commended her for breaking the glass ceiling. Now, this wasn't easy for Woodhouse to be become the national chief of the Assembly of First Nations. It was a battle between her and her opponent, David Pratt, the first vice chief of the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations from Saskatchewan. Pratt refused to concede last night after he was trailing in the ballots behind Woodhouse. But the reason why Woodhouse couldn't win is because she didn't have the 60% needed of votes to become the next national chief, which is required by the AFN's charter. And the only reason why voting ended last night is because this convention center that we're standing in actually had to shut down at midnight. So voting continued this morning, but the ballots were destroyed after an agreement was made between Woodhouse's team and Pratt's team. Pratt conceded. He told the Assembly that he made this decision so there could be unity at the AFN, and this will be Woodhouse's challenge moving forward. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Ottawa.
The City of Saskatoon is expecting to be millions of dollars in the black this budget year. Yes, in the black. This after turbulent budget deliberations that resulted in a 6% property tax increase. So, how? Well, the city's projecting a $10.9 million utility surplus in 2023, mainly from water, wastewater, and waste services. That money is expected to go back into its utility reserves. The city says utilities operate separate from the operating budget and they can't go toward lowering taxes. But a Saskatoon City Councillor has a different idea with the funds if the city ends up with the utility surplus. He says the money could go back to residents when council brings forward its plans for the money.
I think all of that should be returned as rebates to the residents of Saskatoon. If we have made that big of a profit on the utilities, we are pricing the utilities too high, and we need to return that as a rebate to the citizens of Saskatoon.
He says it is possible as long as 5 other councillors agree with him enough to vote that plan through. Saskatoon is also projecting a $3 million surplus in its 2023 operating budget. A Regina woman is dealing with a big insurance claim after a police incident at her short-term rental property. It was all caught on tape thanks to a doorbell cam. She told CBC how it all went down.
We received a phone call from the Regina police saying that they had a warrant to go into our property, that they had reason to believe that there was criminal activity going in and that they'd be entering with SWAT and that we should expect damages. All the windows were smashed in the raid. I guess that was done so that they can put tear gas in and get the guests to exit very quickly, which did happen. I believe they were all arrested. And then SWAT and the police force does go through and basically turn over the entire unit in a search looking for, I guess, whatever they're looking for. Drugs were found, cash was found, weapons were found. They basically just let us know that it's kind of on us now. There is no coverage from the city or from the police. The reason that we went with Airbnb in the first place as a rental platform is because they are known for their great coverage. The claim is started. I'm hopeful that damages are covered. Obviously, it's still, a huge time thing for us. We still need to deal with it. But granted, we're not the ones paying for it in the end. Obviously, that's a bit of a happier ending. This is likely a one-off. And we're just hopeful that it doesn't happen again.
Saskatchewan store owners and bakers are caught in a crossfire of a not-so-sweet labour battle. Workers at the Rogers Sugar Refinery in BC have been on strike for more than 10 weeks. That's led to a shortage in Western Canada. Ashwarya Duda has the story.
This was completely filled up, now all gone.
Rakesh Halari owns an Indian store in Saskatoon. He says bags like this are disappearing within the hour.
People are trying to lay their hands from whichever place, wherever they can find it. They just want to get it, right? Because it's that time that they really need it back.
Halari says he's trying to source sugar from Ontario and increase imports from India to make up for the shortage while the dispute continues. Desi Fadei is also feeling the effects. She runs a baking business out of her home.
It can't happen without sugar.
She uses sugar to make snacks, Nigerian delicacies, donuts, and more.
It's been a little bit difficult, and that's because, especially this season, where you have to do a lot of baking for Christmas, cookies, cakes, pastries. So it's really hard to go to the grocery store with confidence that you get sugar like always. So it's a little nerve-wracking because if you don't get sugar, then you don't get to bake.
Fadei says it's a tough situation for bakers right now.
I was there actually the day before. There was no sugar in Superstore and one of the grocery stores that I always go to. So I went out again yesterday. So I was able to get a bag because there was a limit placed on it. So it was almost gone.
With limited supply and plenty of demand for holiday baking, people are going to have to pay more for sugar.
I don't think this is going to end anytime soon. I think we're in this for a while.
Charlebois says most people think we eat too much sugar, so why care about a sugar plant? He says the strike, along with low production elsewhere, is exacerbating the shortage.
Consumers are going to have to pay more for sugar. It's going to be more difficult. The last thing that we would need to see are people stockpiling. That actually makes things worse.
It's not like there's a zero, like zero sugar, zero scarcity. It's just that the supply is really, really low. So I think we can make do with that, like buy what you need at the time.
Back at the store, Hilary will be selling sugar from Ontario and India, but prices will be 30 to 40% higher. As for Fade, she says she'll be taking orders based on her supply, meaning she'll be baking less and making less money. Aishwarya Duda, CBC News, Saskatoon.
It was a historic moment in Saskatoon this afternoon as the city installed its first new road sign on what was John A. Macdonald Road. As part of the ceremony, Saskatoon's Mayor Charlie Clark presented the new sign to students at Wokotowin School. The new road is called Mio Wokotowin, which means good relationship in Cree. There was smudging, singing, and drumming, and it was all topped off by this moment when a city worker removed the John A. Macdonald Road sign. As Prime Minister, Macdonald played a significant role in the development of residential schools. The mayor says renaming the street is an act of reconciliation.
Just talked to a longtime leader who told me that she lived in this neighborhood and it was one of the proudest moments that she has had in her life of living in Saskatoon. And you think of all the young people growing up here and having it help them feel like who they are matters and their lives matter, and that we want to celebrate and nurture good relationships, not harmful policies. That's pretty powerful.
Clark says the city wants to embrace more Indigenous names. He also says the city will support residents who need to change their mailing addresses, driver's license, and passports. Well, this is not something you see every year. While it was partly sunny and pretty pleasant in Regina today, some rain poured down in Saskatoon today as the system works its way through the province. So, how's this going to affect your drive to work in the morning? Ethan will have your forecast after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. The Saskatchewan Roughriders coaching staff is beginning to take shape. A week after Corey Mace was introduced as the new head coach, Kent Majiri has been named as the special teams coordinator, and Marc Mueller is the offensive coordinator. Mueller is a former star quarterback for the Regina Rams and has spent the majority of his coaching career with the Calgary Stampeders. He spent the last 4 seasons as the Stamps quarterbacks coach. The 34-year-old has a long legacy with the Riders. His grandfather was Hall of Fame quarterback Ron Lancaster.
Yeah, I think it's a special thing for, I get to see, there's a statue of my grandpa out there, there's pictures. I walked by the picture of the '89 team, you can see my dad standing on his toes to look tall. Like, those things are pretty cool, right? So I think it's a great opportunity, no matter where it would be in the league, to be with the guys that are here, the players and the coaches, but for it to be here where we're from and get to coach in the city that you're from it's pretty special.
With the coordinator positions filled, the next step for Corey Mace is to fill out the position coach, then get ready for free agency in February.
This weather update is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz Regina, proud member of the Capital Automotive Group.
And our weather specialist, Ethan Williams, joins me now. I took your advice. I brought the boots today. But the tentacle of the atmospheric river is not here yet.
Yes, it is taking its time in some parts of the province, but it has indeed arrived in others. You saw the rain in Saskatoon today. Makes it look more like October than December, really. This time yesterday, we did have freezing rain warnings in effect for the Saskatoon area and portions of west central Saskatchewan. Those have ended. We also had snowfall warnings in effect for areas from Yorkton upward to Hudson Bay. those are now over as well, and those have kind of just migrated into Manitoba. There is still one lonely snowfall warning here in the RM of Maple Creek, and that's because of the elevation changes in the Cypress Hills. That can create a little bit more snow than in other areas. But it is mainly eastern Saskatchewan that we're watching. A little bit of snow and rain this afternoon in Saskatoon has now moved out. You can't see it on radar here, but some snow in eastern Saskatchewan means that travel is not recommended on Highway 9 just north of Hudson Bay right now. And in southeastern Saskatchewan, it's rain that we're dealing with. Just straight rain right now in that southeast corner, even a few kind of heavier pockets there, as that will begin to transition over to snow as the system moves southeastward and begins to intensify this evening. So still rain by about 9 o'clock tonight, but closer to midnight and in the overnight hours, that's when things really start to change over. But you can see the heavier bands mostly in Manitoba here. I think what was once predicted to be a pretty heavy snowfall event for eastern Saskatchewan is looking less and less like that now. And by tomorrow afternoon, the snow's out here, and a lot of us actually seeing some clearing conditions through the province, full sunshine by the time we get into Saturday as high pressure starts to move in. So total snowfall amounts still could be in the 5 to 10 centimeter range, especially in eastern sections of the Trans-Canada corridor. But you see these darker purple colors in Manitoba. You know, that's close to 15 centimeters in places like Dauphin and the Riding Mountain area. So we're kind of not seeing the brunt of that. Rainfall again, I think a few of these totals here are being included in the snow, so probably at most in the southeast, maybe another 5 millimeters by the time that switches over to snow. And when it does switch over to snow, we're still dealing with the winds a bit here and there. So as we get into tomorrow morning, could see those still in the 50 to 60 kilometer an hour range. But as that system moves out, so too does the wind. And really by Saturday, as high pressure takes hold, we're looking at some pretty calm conditions. Even still through the night tonight, really throughout all of south and central Saskatchewan, we do have a chance of seeing that visibility drop down at times. In west central Saskatchewan, I think that's mostly fog patches that will be causing that to drop. But by tomorrow mid-morning, save for a few spots, we should be seeing some pretty good visibility from there on out. So Regina, a little bit of snow possible in the morning, and then we're just left with cloud cover through the rest of the day with a temperature roughly just below the freezing mark. A little cooler with that air mass and high pressure moving in, clearing us out on Saturday, but the temperatures going to stay above average and maybe another trip above the freezing mark through the middle of next week. Saskatoon, I think you will see sun tomorrow, maybe even tomorrow morning. A little bit cooler through the weekend, and then again, that bump up in temperatures as we head into Tuesday and Wednesday. So winter has tried its best here, Sam, to get going, but to no avail.
Definitely. And I'm wondering, there's brown Christmas and then there's tropical Christmas, and which way are we headed?
Yeah, well, maybe shorts and a sweater instead of the boots this year.
Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
Again, we made a little snow here last weekend. Of course, not nearly enough to be able to open, but as soon as it gets cold enough, we'll get going and hopefully open, before Christmas.
Well, speaking of the need for snow, there might be some coming, but it's not enough for skiers and snowboarders to hit the slopes. At Table Mountain near the Battleford, staff will soon be making snow. It hasn't been cold enough, though, to get it going. It takes about 2 weeks straight of 24-hour days to make enough snow to open up. We'll be back after the break. The federal government rolled out its latest climate change initiative today, and it's aimed specifically at Canada's oil and gas industry. It calls for emissions in the oil patch to be cut by roughly 35% by 2030. Alberta's already said it will fight the plan, but Environment Minister Steven Guilbeault says it is both feasible and constitutional.
We're not going after production, we're going after pollution. And that's what the Supreme Court has said. The Supreme Court said that our ability to intervene on climate change issues is not an open bar, and we can't impede on provincial jurisdiction, and that's not what we're doing now. We are staying in our lane, if you wish, which is the lane of pollution.
Guilbeault spoke from the COP28 climate summit in Dubai. He says oil and gas production accounts for more than a quarter of Canada's annual emissions, and that capping them is critical for the country to meet its climate targets. The announcement of the cap and trade framework comes at the same time Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is threatening to delay government work and hold up billions of dollars in spending if the Liberal government does not drastically revise its carbon pricing plan. And Ethan's back with one last look at your weather.
Yeah, we're looking for a little bit of snow possible tonight in Regina, at least. Not all that heavy, though. Probably just some few flurries. But keep in mind those winds starting to pick up, gusting to 50 even by midnight, and even more so by 8 a.m., making -4 feel a little bit cooler. We're just left with a little bit of lingering flurries even still by 8 a.m. And then by the time we get to the afternoon, that snow is pretty much by and large gone. Still left with a little bit of wind around -3. Saskatoon, I think we're pretty much in the clear by the time we hit midnight in terms of any precipitation. And even by tomorrow morning, and we're a little on the cool side, but we will see some breaks of sun here and there. And then through the afternoon, around -5 and a mix of sun and cloud. And those temperatures going to stay a little cool, Sam, but more sun to come.
I love when -7 is a little on the cool side.
Yeah, especially this time of year. Not bad.
Thanks, Ethan.
You bet.
And before we go tonight, the holiday season has begun for many across the country, and a lot of people are heading out to buy their Christmas trees. So our colleagues in Alberta talked to an expert to get some advice on buying the perfect tree.
Hi everyone, I'm Aaron Gregoluk here at Greenland Garden Center, and here are 5 things to keep in mind when choosing your Christmas tree. Number 1, why do trees cost so much? As you can see here, prices vary depending on species and sizes. First thing, the grower has to grow these trees. Some of these trees are 4 to 5 years old, some are even 10 to 12 years old, so that will all factor into the price. The other big one for us is transportation. Getting the trees to your location is a big cost that's incurred. Number 2, when is the best time to buy your tree? That all depends on where you are, your location, and what's available. These days, with what seems to be a shortage out there and high demand, I would say the sooner you can buy your tree, the better. Trees are usually gone by the 1st to 2nd week of December. By December 10th, there's not a lot of selection out there. Number 3, which is the right tree for you? We prefer the fir trees. They hold their needles really well. They have a good smell to them. Douglas fir would be your most economical tree. Has the strongest scent that's available, but the branches are a little weaker. Nordman fir is more like your traditional artificial tree. Individual branches, strong branches, nice silver undertone, green shiny top. And then noble fir is a very full tree. You can't see the trunk at all, but still has those individual branches that are easy to hang your ornaments or heavy decorations on. Number 4, what should you do when you bring your tree home? First thing, transportation. If you've had it cut at the place you bought it, we can cut it here for you. Don't get that cut dirty. Don't scrape it on the ground. Don't get any dirt into that cut area. Once you get it home, if it hasn't been cut, you need to do your own fresh cut and put it in water within a couple hours. That can either be in the stand inside your house or in a garage in a bucket of water. Number 5, how can you keep that tree alive for as long as possible? If you can lower your room temperature, that's great. Obviously, stay comfortable, but if you can lower it, that's great. Extra humidity. If you had a humidifier, if you can bump up the humidity in your house a little, that will help as well. Keep it away from fans, keep it away from drafts, close the register near it. All those things will help. So you put it in the house. How can you keep that thing going? Water, water, water. That's the biggest tip. Most people can get a good 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks inside their house with their tree. If you have to hit a certain day like New Year's Day or Ukrainian Christmas or whatever day is important to you, scale that back about 4 weeks, and I think that's a safe time to bring that tree in the house. And after Christmas, what should you do with that Christmas tree? If you're out in the country or if you compost, you could definitely remove the limbs and try to compost it. It may take a little bit of time. Otherwise, your municipality, they usually have scheduled days for pickup of those trees.
Some good advice. That is it for us tonight. For News Anytime, head to our website, go to our YouTube channel, or download the CBC News app on your phone. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.